Welcome to Salsidoparanormal. I'm your host, James Salcido, and tonight on episode 900, I will be sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and ways to listen to the show, at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is there's many ways to support the show. If I can get the order of things right here, you can always share the show with others and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can also sign up for the Patreon feed and get extra content there for as little as $1 a month. You can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and some other items there with designs made by friends of the show. Support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And please also check out the links to friends of the show in every episode description. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who joins me on Saturdays whenever she is able and has her own channel. And Michael Strange of Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows as well as my own 24/7 online for free. And so yeah, I think that covers everything. Again, thank you all for listening in to any of the episodes of the show, because I don't know that I would be at episode 900 without everyone listening in and being here when you're able and commenting on things and sharing all the things and all the support that you've all given in all the different ways to the show since you found it and since I started it just over 5 years ago now. So, and just for anyone that hasn't checked out the previous show, the one that just came out very early this morning as I'm recording here, I would recommend that. That's a 2 hour show. And that's in large part thanks to a couple of friends who called in, Michael Strange himself and Derek, the Night Stalker from who calls into Trouble Minds Radio as well a lot, and joining me and made that show amazing. So I really appreciate them as well. So I have just a bunch of basically I have my file here of all uh, my true stories I find online that I keep and I read on these shows, and we'll see how many of them we can get through tonight. Um, I am a bit worn out, so sorry if I sound different, but it's been a busy month in a lot of different ways. Some planned, some not planned. So as it goes with life. Let me get to the file here, and we'll get started. So, and again, thank you all. I see you all there in the chat. Thank you all for being here. This first one says, I'll start with the first unexplained event out of two in my life. I was about 12 when I had this notebook I would draw in and write in at school. One day, it just disappeared, but I couldn't recall how I lost it or when it was, uh, when it was lost. So I just forgot about it. Roughly a year, possibly a year and a half later, my mother and I went to the beach. We decided to go to a spot not often visited by people, just past the shore, on the sand. Excuse me. I saw the notepad again. I was amazed and intrigued. It was in pristine condition, as if it had just been placed there moments ago. Excuse me. Um, no water damage, just as I had left it all that time ago. And that's where that first one stops there. That's fascinating. Because you would think if somehow it got lost or taken and then dropped there, that would have been covered by sand or who knows what. I mean, rocks, shells, whatever. That's really fascinating that happened because, again, if it's out there in nature, usually there's gonna probably be something that happens to it, or it'll be taken or thrown away or whatever. I wonder if it literally did just show up there somehow right before the writer got there. Anyway, moving on to their second experience here. I was in the city. It was 11:45 at night. I turned onto the street where the train station was located. There was nobody else around in any direction, which I've never experienced any other time in a big city environment, apart from one man sitting on a bench. As I walked closer and got near him, I stopped to ask him a question. Then, shortly after I continued walking, I took only 4 or 5 steps, turned around, and he was gone. I checked all possible areas he could have gone, but could not see him anywhere. Once again, I was amazed. He vanished. No, this is not a hallucination. This happened. I'm far from a skeptic, and I'm happy I got to experience this. I share because I want to know if anyone has had anything similar happen, and to get a discussion happening. And of course, that's from a website. So those are both amazing accounts. Sometimes you hear about that when people have encounters with anything anomalous or paranormal, where they're in an environment that is normally busy, that should be busy, and yet, for whatever reason, at the time this happens, I wonder if it's partly because of it, or if other beings, other entities, other consciousness choose to be in these areas when they're not busy, because they're not busy, and and then you just get one random person that happens to walk through and then spots them. Or if they choose that area because they know there's only one person that's going to be coming through, and you have this weird encounter. Again, I've heard that before in so many cases where people will say, "I don't know why this area, which is normally so busy, was so empty at this time when this happened or that happened." So, really, a fascinating aspect of how all this works and why it works the way it does. Moving on to the next one. It says, "So I let my dog outside and shut the door. The dog was still outside after the door was shut because I saw them outside through the window in the door at the other side of the yard. I went inside and found my dog in the house. There was no U-turn, reflection of the dog, or merged memory, and I don't have another dog that looks like the other. The door was shut tight, and there is no way or no other entry point. The dog could not have run in because the door to let them outside was in a separate room that has another door that leads into the house. So I would have seen the dog come in before letting them back into the house." And that's where that one ends. Um, I wonder if they let out some kind of astral projection of the dog. I'm guessing it wasn't outside when they went to look back outside, because they don't say that they still saw the dog outside. Um, what's funny is I always joke about this with cats, that cats can teleport or astral project, which I do think they can. Um, this may be the first time I've come across one like that with a dog. But if one type of species can do that, then why can't another type? And of course, the answer to all those questions is I don't know. So, but I thought that was an amazing one there because usually when I have experiences with my cat Logan, or when I hear about experiences with cats, that's what it is. It's some kind of teleportation or astral projection or whatever. And but not so often with dogs. It seems like, at least so far in all the accounts I've found. This next one says, while cooking dinner, I walked past the bedroom, and out of the corner of my eye, something about the size of a dog charged at me from the dark bedroom, moving quickly toward me. I fell back and shouted some choice words when my partner came rushing from the other room. It looked vaguely like a hunched over person crawling towards me, but trying to remember how remember it now just feels like a fog. And that one is I understand why that'd be terrifying. I also wonder, I mean, what was that? Some other glimpse into another dimension? Um, some other being that was there that also had some glimpse into this dimension? Um, I wonder if, again, did this other being get freaked out by the person that maybe suddenly appeared to them? I always wonder about that. How does it work for the other? Are they always in control, or are consciousness or beings in other dimensions always aware of everything that's going on here when things happen? Do they always sort of um, have control of the situation, or do they not? I don't think they always would have control. But again, I don't know anything for sure. So, but I just wonder with that one. Again, this way it vanished, um, and then the fog is kind of weird. The mental fog over it after it happened. It just makes me wonder about some other dimension. Um, just two levels of reality kind of touching for a minute, and two beings who are in near the same space having that interaction, and it freaking at least one of them out, possibly both of them out. So, moving on to the next one here. This one says, it's almost Halloween, so I wanted to share a story that happened to me when I was about 11 years old. This was around the time I first moved to a new city and had finally settled. I had stayed up on my phone and handheld game console until past 12 midnight, and I heard a woman scream L. It's a name, but I don't use names in these shows whenever I can. Outside my window. For context, I lived in a townhouse with my room on the third floor, my window facing all the garages and parking spaces. I went to the window and I saw probably the most cliche ghost you could see. Pale white woman, black hair, and white dress. She was just running around on the street screaming the name over and over. She then stopped and turned to look at me. I immediately went down and stayed as quiet as I could and went right back to my bed. Couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my mom about what happened and asked if she had heard anything, and she said she didn't. It was a weird and unexplainable encounter that I like to think about from time to time. Thought I'd share. I thought it'd be fun to share, and that's where that one ends. That when it first started, you could almost wonder if that was a residual, and it still could possibly be. Again, we don't know how far or how long these recordings, these energy fields that act as playback of certain events, how long they last, or how or why they go. So maybe at some point, this woman did look up in that direction. It would be fascinating to know what was there before the townhouses, or how long the townhouses were there. Um, or if it was some kind of an intelligent, if it was a sentient, uh, basically it was consciousness somehow, an apparition of someone that was there that felt like they were being watched, which is also fascinating because you hear about that with people sensing they're being watched by other beings, ghosts, cryptids, whatever, aliens. Um, but that time, the what appeared to be a ghost seemed to maybe feel like they were being watched. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, when I was a kid, I used to live at my grandparents' house with my mom. When we eventually moved out, I would go back for an occasional sleepover. It was mostly because I missed my old home, but also because I got to sleep downstairs alone and would stay up all night on their desktop computer. These sleepovers went from when I was about 9 until 10 or 11 years old. One of the last few nights I stayed over at my grandparents', I was doing my usual night owl routine. I stayed in the living room with the TV on. Behind one of the couches was the desktop computer, where I was watching a video online while playing random flash games, and that's a type of programming or I don't know, system or whatever online. Brain rot things, they say. Both of the cats were downstairs, right next to me, and my grandparents were upstairs sleeping. For context, my grandparents' house has a long driveway leading to the garage that is parallel to the house. The back porch of the house is usually where everyone enters through. On the garage is a motion sensor light that still worked at the time and could detect movement through the windows where the dining room. Did I read that right? Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. And the kitchen was. As I was messing around online on the computer, I suddenly heard footsteps. Not regular footsteps. They were running from upstairs all the way down the stairs and into the kitchen. Then the garage motion light turned on. I've never froze up so hard in my life. I don't remember how long I just sat there, waiting to hear anything else, or, God forbid, see someone come around the corner. I tried to think of any rational explanation for what I heard. The cats were with me, and they were both freaked out. My grandparents certainly weren't running any distance, but especially down the stairs that fast. The heater wasn't on. If it if it was a weird house sounds, why did the garage light turn on when it's as soon as it stopped? After nearly uh, peeing my pants, it says, and sitting at the desk for who knows how long, I turned off the computer and lights and made my way back to my spot on the couch, all while staring at the dining room. I left the TV on for some kind of comfort and noise. I don't know how I managed to sleep that night. I told my grandparents about what happened the next day. My grandma dismissed it, didn't believe me, and whatnot. She was just that kind of lady. My grandpa never had any kind of opinion on anything and only said that the garage light turned on because a leaf flew by. I've told my family, who already believe the house is haunted. My grandma passed away in that house years later, and my grandpa still lives there, along with his son. Not long after she passed, I had a dream about seeing her ghost in that house, where she said it was crowded and confirmed it was haunted. I don't know what or who might be haunting that house, and I'll probably never get an explanation for why I heard someone running down the stairs. But I do know I'll never forget it. And that's where that one ends. The dream after the fact is fascinating. And again, was it a visitation dream? It seems like it's possible. Not guaranteed, but maybe. And I love the fact that it was sort of confirming what they already thought. However you want to look at that. Dawn in the chat says, "I love when animals react to." Yeah, that does help you know that you're not just imagining things. So, yeah, I thought that was a good one overall because there's a lot there. And so yeah, moving on to the next one here. And thank you all for being here and listening. And I see you all there, and appreciate you all being here. This next one says, "I'm not sure if this belongs." Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I was kind of skipping over what I wanted to mention with that last one. Um, I thought it was amazing that they had the sounds going through the house and then the light turning on outside. And it reminds me a little bit. It's a different situation, but one of the true stories I shared the last show was about someone who saw a light floating around outside in their backyard, and then eventually it moved away, or removed, and then it faded away, and then as soon as it faded away, their the dining room, I think it was dining room anyway, the light in a room near them turned on, and not just the lights went on by themselves, like without the switch moving, but the switch actually flipped and the lights turned on. And I was wondering with that one, and now I kind of wonder with this one. Did someone move through those two areas, one after the other, and somehow them interacting with the physical environment caused the um, the lights to turn on in that first story from the last show, and or the motion lights turn on in this one I just read? I wonder about that. How does that work? What kind of effects can consciousness and energy have when it's moving through an area on everything around it? And can it be is it that doing all those things, or are there separate things that can happen at the same time? I don't know, but I think that's a neat idea to consider there with these kinds of experiences. Anyway, I knew I was forgetting something, and I could not remember what it was for a second. Moving on to this next one here. This one says, "I'm not sure if this belongs in this group, but has anyone experienced something similar? So I'm currently house sitting, and on my second night, I noticed two flashes coming from the corner of the bedroom behind a full length standing mirror. It was like someone was taking two photos. Even though it was weird, I didn't think much of it because I was half asleep and thought it came from the window. The exact same thing happened last night while I was fully aware, and I can confirm it did not come from the window. The lights were closer to the ground and heading towards the door, and nowhere near the window. I checked behind the mirror and underneath the bed, and there's nothing that could have caused it." And that's where that one ends. I find that to be maybe telling, possibly, that the lights came from behind a mirror. A mirror. I wonder again, is it because of the mirror, because of that energy that mirrors can um, can contain or absorb or put out, that possible portal that can happen in a mirror? I wonder if that was part of how the lights were manifesting. Also, having them go out towards the door of the room makes me think of basically one or two, who knows for sure, um, presences just appearing, manifesting there, and then leaving the room out through the doorway. But it's hard to know with that for sure. So I thought that was a neat one as well. Moving into the next one here. These are going fast today. This might be a shorter show. We'll see. My partner, myself, and my 2-year-old were in Osaka, in Japan, and we came back to the room after a busy day sightseeing. We were staying in a little 1-bedroom studio apartment with a sliding door that separated the kitchen and the bedroom. The sliding door was shut between the kitchen and the bedroom. I was asleep next to my partner, and my baby was also asleep. My partner was awake next to me the whole time. I woke up to the sound of a coin dropping and rolling around. I asked my partner, what the heck was that? She said it sounded like a coin. I opened up the sliding door, and there was a single 100 yen coin. I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. Sitting in the middle of the dining room table. I looked around, and was nothing around it. It couldn't have fallen from anywhere, as it was just set on the table, and the only thing above it was the roof. My partner and I started getting a little bit creeped out, as we couldn't figure out where the coin had come from. We went back into the bedroom, and again I slid the door shut and went back to the bed. After literally about 20 seconds, we heard a bang from back in the kitchen. I got up and walked into the kitchen, and one of my baby's toys he was playing with before he went to sleep was sitting in the middle of the kitchen floor. There was absolutely no way this could have fallen from anywhere either, as it was next to my boy in the bed, and the door was shut back back over again. Now I don't believe in this stuff at all. I felt like things happened to me at one point in my life, but I guess ignorance is bliss, and I just started to think it's all a bit of rubbish till this event happened. I can't really explain what happened, and it kind of messed with my head a bit, as I always need a logical reason to why things happen. And my partner and myself witnessed what happened together, and I can't explain. My partner says just let it go, but I kind of wanted to ask the Airbnb if anything like this ever happened before. Also, we came back to Australia, and I bought the coin. I brought the coin back. I should have just left it there. I have it set outside the house, like the ghost has been quarantined to the garden, and they have LOL there in the post. But in all seriousness, is this kind of stuff just a regular thing? And that's where that post ends. I wouldn't say it's a regular thing for everyone, but it is moving of objects, and vanishing and appearing objects is a thing. I share so many reports of that on this show, and you can find so many shows about where that is one aspect of whatever's going on in the lives of people that have one or more experiences that they can't explain. So, and even then, it's probably not. I don't know if it's like super common for everyone, in general, but it is within the field of looking into all these things. It is fairly common. So that's the coin dropping is one thing because they don't know where that came from. But then when you have an object that belongs to you or your family vanish, and you know it vanished because it was in the same space as you were, and then appear somewhere else, that is one thing. That's something completely different. And yeah, let's see here. I'm looking at the chat here. Um, Don says pennies from heaven. Even just coins appearing. Yeah, pennies, and who knows where they're coming from, but pennies, dimes. I mean, any kind of coins. They do appear. That's just something that happens in the U.S. too. So it makes me wonder now if that happens a lot in other parts of the world as well with their own versions of their currency that they have. So moving on to the next one here. This one says, I was hiking alone with my dog in the wilderness at sunset. We stayed to watch the sun go down and left right when it started getting dark. It was 2 miles back to the car, and there wasn't anyone else around. I've hiked in the dark plenty of times, so I felt totally comfortable. My Pomeranian doesn't like the dark as usual and didn't want to head back into the woods, so I picked her up and kept going. Not long after, I thought I saw a little girl, maybe 8 years old, off to my left, about 10 yards away in the trees. I told myself it was just low light, messing with me, turned on my headlamp, and kept walking. Then my AirPods, I guess earbuds, cut out for about a minute, right after the word ghosts in my song. That's not creepy at all, but also amazing. I switched to a podcast to keep my mind from running away with me. A couple of minutes later, suddenly, I was nearly at the car. I walk a normal pace and thought I should have still had a long way to go. But I reached the parking area, only 20 minutes after leaving a spot 2 miles away. I brushed it off until I got home and told my husband. Saying it out loud made it feel a lot stranger. This was uh, near Leeds, Utah, which has a reputation for being haunted. But I was about a 15-mile uh, drive into the wilderness from there. I love this route and have done it in the dark many times. I really don't want to become afraid of a place I enjoy. Has anyone experienced something like this? Time passing wrong on a familiar trail? And that's where that one ends. And not on a trail, but yeah, I've had an experience with that where I was walking to a restaurant, walking the same path I always took to get to the restaurant, and it would take me 10 to maybe 15 minutes to get there, no matter what, even with traffic, because it was side streets. And one time I was walking there and I went into this weird trance that I don't know why or how I went into it, because I don't normally let that happen or have that happen while I'm walking, because I don't think it's a good idea. I am legally blind and I have no depth perception. So I try to be pretty aware of what I'm doing. And so, but I did go into this trance this one time. And when I came out of it, I was almost to the restaurant. And I was not happy that happened. But I thought, well, it happened. And got in the restaurant and thought, well, I must be here right on time. And checked on the clock on my phone, and I had gotten there in 5 minutes. And I don't know how that happened. So, uh, so yeah, and I found other accounts here and there, um, and shared them on the show of time passing in strange ways. And there's just another example of that. So, and some of those accounts do take place out in the middle of nature as well. So, um, and hopefully the person is still able to go out and enjoy that same area. So, but it is hard. I've heard hunters or people that love the outdoors, and they would go to certain places, but then they would have an encounter with um, usually be some kind of a cryptid, like a creature. So either Sasquatch or Bigfoot or others, and they don't ever want to go back to that area again, or if they do, they don't ever want to go by themselves. They won't go to areas by themselves anymore. So these things can unfortunately happen, make it hard to want to go back to those same areas again. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, when I was a kid, between 2 and 5 years old, I used to have this recurring dream. It always took place in the same place, a kind of a barn filled with boxes, and there was a man in his 40s who spent his time organizing stuff. He had a blue beacon light on his head. I guess I mean a headlamp. And it gave off this really pure, almost peaceful glow. In the dream, I would wake up, in quotation marks, in my bed, open my eyes, and suddenly I was there, standing in that barn with him. The man was kind, calm, a bit mysterious, but comforting at the same time. We used to talk, though I barely remember what about. What I do remember is that every time we had to say goodbye, he'd ask me to give him a fist bump. And the moment uh, my hand touched his, he'd disappear into the same blue light coming from the beacon. That dream happened a lot until the day my mom got pregnant with my little brother. After that, I never saw him again. One time, I found myself alone in the barn, but the man wasn't there. I wanted to go outside, but the closer I got to the door, the heavier the air felt. I started feeling this deep, irrational fear, like something terrible was waiting for me on the other side. I decided to stay inside, lay down on the bed in the barn, and when I opened my eyes, I was back in my real bed. The weirdest part is how real it all felt. My body felt light, perfect, like nothing was wrong with it. And a few times, I didn't even lie down in the barn. I just woke up. Oops, put my hand on the table there. Sorry about that. I just woke up, standing in my room, in the exact same position I had in the dream. And that's where that one ends. And that one to me is fascinating. Did this kid travel somewhere? Maybe out of body? Maybe I don't know. I really wonder if they they went somewhere somehow. Even after that man was gone, which the timing of that is also fascinating, that he wasn't there after the mom got pregnant. I wonder, and this is a stretch in a way, but it also makes me wonder, was the writer there somehow meeting with a version of the person that would be his brother? Um, is that why the man was never in that barn anymore after the, I think it said a brother was born? Anyway, I can see here. I just want to scroll or look at this. I'm just checking, but yeah. So either way, was it was the yeah? So it was little brother. Yeah. So it was a brother. Was the writer there seeing a version, having meetings with a version of his brother in some other level of reality? And of course, I have no idea. But the that experience and the way they describe it, it reminds me a lot about a lot of my weird alternate universe dreams that I've had, experiences I've had while dreaming, while sleeping, where I've gone to other places that I recognized in most cases, and I've been with people that I recognized, but they weren't quite the same version of themselves. And in some cases, there were other people around that I didn't recognize. Um, Again, when we sleep and where our mind is in a different state, our brain is in a different state of being. Do we or can we travel to these other? I don't know if it's universes or dimensions or what it is, and I feel like maybe that's possible. Moving on to the next one here. This one says, my friend and I were driving on a remote road at night. We both saw a tall, thin figure standing in a field, perfectly still. We immediately looked at each other and said, did you see that? At the exact same time. We to look again, turned around to look again, but the figure was gone. There were no houses or roads nearby. We never spoke about it again. Has anyone else had a shared, unexplained experience like this with someone? That's where that one ends. It's a short one, but what's fascinating about that is every so often I have heard of accounts of people seeing people or apparitions of people in fields. And if you think about it, depending on the type of field it is, um, the crops are growing. They're tall. They can be tall, um, almost as tall as, and maybe even taller. I'm not even sure. Um, I don't know enough about farming and crops and all that, but as tall as a person. So what was what was that field? What was growing on that field? First of all, was it all flat, or was there crops there? Because if there was crops there, then does that mean this person was somehow appearing to be floating or floating basically above the crops? Even if that's not the case, if it was just a flat field and then a figure was there, but then it was gone, that's still strange in a way. But I've heard of cases where it's more specific, and they talk about seeing a figure that is um, basically above the corn, the top of all the corn, like floating almost above the corn in a cornfield. So I don't know. Again, that there's these posts, you can only go on what they provide, and of course it's nothing against them. But again, I've seen this pattern before, here and there. So let's move on to the next one, since that one was pretty short. And I'm gonna try to get through all these today if I can, but we'll see how much time that takes. Uh, this one says, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was laying in the front bedroom of my great grandparents' large home my mother inherited. There was an entire upstairs apartment not being used, and it was a large 3 bedroom home on the first floor. Upstairs were 3 more bedrooms, a kitchen, and bathroom. My mom was about to rent the upstairs out, but was also saving it for a relative whose lease was up. My mom and her entire family grew up in that home. By this time, my great grandparents had passed on, but my grandparents were still alive. I often watched TV in bed with my mom when I was that young, and would either fall asleep in her room or go to my room, which was closer to the back of the house. It was a Friday night, so I was allowed to stay up late. Around 11:30 p.m., we heard a very loud, and I lost my spot because okay, there we go. A very loud noise of someone entering the home through the back door. You have to pass through the dining room, living room, and kitchen to get to the back of the home. I keep wanting to say house, but it's actually home. Anyway, words are hard. You cannot see the back door until you reach the kitchen. My mom grabbed her gun, and I remember grabbing a metal candle holder. She told me to stay in the room and hide, but I refused. I wasn't going to let her go alone, and I was scared, so I trailed behind her with my weapon. My mom had her gun drawn, making her way to the back room. When we reached the back room, the room was glowing. We only saw it for a few seconds, maybe 2 or 3 seconds, and then it went pitch black. After the glow went away, we saw the back door wide open with a men's size 12 mud print on the door where someone kicked it in. There was no one in sight. When my mom tried to call 911, the phone line was dead. We later found it had been cut. She had a panic button that alerted the police in the front room. The alarm had not yet been set, but the button worked. Help came within 6 or 7 minutes. This happened in 1994, over 30 years ago. That wasn't 30 years ago. That was only like 10 years ago, something like that. I'm kidding. However, I have always believed that someone came there with the intentions of doing us harm. I also believe when they kicked down the door, they saw something that scared the daylights out of them, and they took off running. I believe it was our relatives protecting us in the family home. I saw the glow clear as day. It was a purple color, almost what a lit gas pilot on a stove would look like. My mother saw it as well. We never talked about the glow until I got older. She never mentioned it to anyone, I don't think. We had the conversation when I was like 20, and I talked about the glow, and she looked at me in complete shock and said, "You saw it too?" And that's where that one ends. That one is fascinating, and I forget what show it was on or where I was talking about this. But I was recently just talking about this somewhere on some show, um, about how, or maybe it wasn't even a show. Anyway, about how I wonder in some cases where people hear noises and in their home or in the building, and they find things that they find a door that's open that shouldn't be, but then they don't find anything out of place. Um, is that because something paranormal, some ghost, some other consciousness was there and frightened off the person trying to break in and steal things or do whatever they were going to do? Um, I think it was a show because I think there was a show where someone was woken up by a voice yelling at them to wake up and it turned out their neighbor's vehicle was being broken into. So, so these things apparently it's possible for them to happen, and it always cracks me up when I think about that because it makes me wonder how many people are out there who made bad decisions, and I mean in all the ways there, who have this story about, hey, I tried to break into this house once or this building once, and I did break in, and I got in, and I was going to take whatever I wanted, and then I saw this or I heard this, and I got out of there because it was I was so frightened. I wonder how many of those stories are out there that basically we'll never hear about because no one really would want to admit that they broke into someone's property. Just a random side thought there. But anyway, moving on to the next one here. This one says, I was on the way to an appointment today, and I saw something I can't really explain. I saw something completely black on its hands and feet climbing up the side of a very rocky freeway embankment and underpass. And by the time my dad got to the spot I saw this thing, it was completely gone. It was 2:30 in the afternoon. The sun was out. I clearly saw something that looked kind of human, but not quite human. I thought maybe it was a person climbing the very rocky freeway embankment and underpass, but it completely disappeared in like 10 seconds after seeing him passing the spot. I saw it. I might be overreacting a little bit. It could have been a person, but something about it felt off. You can see all the way through the underpass where it or the person went. I didn't see them climb over any of the guard railings. I wasn't driving. I was sitting in the front passenger seat. And that's where that one ends. And I don't know what they saw. Shadowy figure creature thing that could just vanish. Um, if it hadn't vanished, then I mean, who knows? It could have been a person, possibly. Even though I don't know. They say it was a very rocky climb, so without some kind of gear, and I'm guessing there's rules against that kind of a thing as well. So yeah, I don't know what they saw there, but those daytime sightings of dark figures like that to me are fascinating because um, it's just it's you think of daytime as being nothing weird can happen in the daytime, but obviously if you've looked at any of these things or you've listened to enough of these shows or any other kind of similar show, yeah, there's no real time limit or exact time frame of when things are will or won't happen. So, um, so yeah, let's see here. Moving on to the next one. This one says, okay, I have been to Fort Point a lot growing up as a kid. It's really cool to see this little fort that was built back in 1794 to protect the San Francisco Bay. Now, if you walk into the fort and go to the right towards one of the corners of the fort that is actually under the Golden Gate Bridge, it's pretty dark. Normally, I was fine and never noticed anything weird. The vibe was super relaxed. That changed one day. I was a teenager and my friend was with me. We were with my family. My folks were talking to the park rangers, and my friend and I were uh, decided to walk towards the right corner. The rangers sometimes changed the displays, and I wanted to check them out. Then we walked to that dark corner to take a flight of stairs to go up. It felt different and oppressive, and definitely not welcoming. We looked at each other and felt sorry, and decided let's get the heck out. So we did. The rest of the fort was pretty relaxed, but both of us realized that of lost my spot. Uh, when we were in view of that corner, it felt like we were being watched. Luckily, we left to go to other places. I have been back to that fort before and back to that corner and never felt anything like that before. To this day, I wonder what it was. I'm pretty comfortable in spooky places. I used to work at the haunted Toys R Us in Sunnyvale, and my home growing up as a teenager, I swear to this day, is haunted. I just never felt anything like this before. Anyone had a similar experience like this? And that's where that one ends. I did look up that station in Sunnyvale. Sunnyvale, yes, Sunnyvale. There's not a lot of articles about it, so I didn't really. I'm not going to do a deep dive on it. And apparently, it's been changed to another store since then, at least once. So they're just making references to places they've been. So which is valid. I don't mind that they did that, and um, because they're pointing out they've been to other places and not had that same feeling as they did on that one day in that one fort, Fort Point, I guess it's called. I wonder. There seems like there was some other presence there that day for whatever reason. I don't know if it was connected to the place or not. Because it sounds like they've been there before and after and didn't have that same feeling. So maybe there was just some other consciousness that was resting there or staying there for that time, and they did not want to be bothered by anyone at that time. Um, is all I can think of with that. So, and it could have been connected to the history of the fort, maybe not. It's hard to say. Moving on to the next one here. Excuse me. This one says, this was a normal day about a year ago on a ship that I worked on. I was walking towards the back of the ship and I was about to go down a level uh, when I turned the corner looking at the barber shop on the ship. It had a glass door. I was trying to look at myself through the reflection, but then I saw a shadow figure just bolt across the hallway behind me, about 3 to 4 feet away from me. I turned around instantly and peeked over down the hallway to see who it was, and no one was there. There were no sounds of footsteps, which was also weird for me because everyone wore steel toe boots. It didn't really scare me. It was more like, wow, that just happened. Anyway, I thought I'd share and see if anyone else has experienced something similar. And that's where that one ends. And sorry to hear that, Steve. No worries. You can always listen to the podcast. And hello, Steve and Jen and Sweets and Herschel and Dawn, and I think that's everyone there that I see right now. But if I miss anyone, hello. Thank you all for being here and listening in. And we'll get through at least another couple of stories here, true stories here. But I like the point that the writer there in that post made about they didn't hear any sounds when they saw the shadow go by. And it sounds like they feel like there should have been sounds. I'm guessing if you run wearing steel toe boots on a ship that probably has it doesn't sound like it was a pleasure cruise, not like a cruise ship. Um, you would hear those boots hitting the ground, the floor, I should say. So, um, So yeah, I'm not sure what they saw, and I'm glad they weren't freaked out and they just were just amazed by it. And of course, I'd be curious. They didn't say what the ship was, but I'd be curious about the history of that kind of of that ship to see if there's any other history of activity there, and or sort of the history of the ship itself to see if it could explain or point towards the reason for any kind of that activity. This next one says, for a lot of my life, I've been interested in ghosts, and although I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a believer, I had experiences from my childhood. When I was younger, I had the nickname Ghost Bait. Um, I could see myself having that now, actually. Um, although with the experiences I've had, I can't say they were completely unexplainable, except one. Now, this story is not crazy, especially compared to some, but it's something I'm always going to question. When I was around 12 or 13, we lived in a split level house. At the bottom of the split level, there was a door, and at the top was the living room and kitchen. I also swear that house was haunted. Excuse me. At night, I'd hear people walking up and down the stairs. Uh, my mom experienced some things too. I'd also consider her spiritually inclined when it comes to ghosts. Well, one day my family left and I was home alone. It was one of the first few times I was left alone, mind you. I was sitting on the couch in the living room. I specifically remember watching a video on my phone. I'm sorry, tablet. All of a sudden, I heard the door downstairs slam shut. I froze and paused the video. I then heard someone walking up the stairs. I heard each and every step. There was a pause in the steps as they reached the landing of the split level and then continued up the stairs. I heard it walk all the way up the stairs as it reached the top. I could see the top of the stairs where uh, where I was sitting. There we go. Although I couldn't see anything, I heard it reach the top of the stairs, and then nothing. While it was happening and afterwards, I was more uh, in shock than scared. And honestly, after it reached the top and I saw there was nothing there, it was almost a relief because I knew it was just a ghost and not an actual person. I called my mom afterwards and told her what happened. And she said something like, well, I can't do anything about ghosts, or something like that. I love that in a way. I ended up checking the downstairs door, and sure enough, it was closed. Now, I don't remember if it was open or not before this happened, but it wasn't usually closed. I still can't explain what happened, and I don't think I ever will. But it's my go-to personal ghost story when the topic is brought up. And I like the reaction to that. Basically, like, well, it's not an intruder that I have to deal with in any way or run away from. So I guess it's okay. I kind of could imagine myself being that same way. So yeah, I don't know what happened. There's someone invisible, at least to the right of there, came up those steps and closed that door. Or at least there was the sound of the door closing. Again, they don't know. They don't remember if the door was closed or not. Moving on to this next one here. We'll see where we're at when we get done with this as far as if I probably will stop there actually, because I have like another dozen stories, but that might take us another hour, and I'm not feeling up to that tonight. This next one says, so yeah, this will be the last one for the night. This next one says, okay, to preface, I'm not exactly a believer in the paranormal. There have been times I've heard unexplainable things before, but I've always thought it to just be things my brain conjured up just before sleep, since it all happened before that. I have a lever type door handle to my room. I have 4 AC units, air conditioning units, in my apartment, 3 for the family bedrooms and 1 for the living room. When this happened, only my bedroom AC was on, as my family was away, and it was around 1 a.m. I live in a tropical country, too. My door handle had moved on its own, like someone wanted to open the door, and just stayed there. I didn't catch a glimpse of it moving myself, but I heard it and saw the door handle had shifted downward when I looked at it. I would have chalked it up to physics if not for the fact that my grandma had just passed recently, and her ashes were spread yesterday. My mom insists that it was likely my grandma visiting me since she used to be so worried about me. If it was my grandma, I love her, but I genuinely thought for a moment someone broke into my apartment, and it scared the heck out of me. If it's a result of physics, heck of a time for it to happen. Not quite sure what to think. I'm definitely not knowledgeable enough in physics to explain, but I'm not all too concerned in the paranormal either. And that's where that one ends. And that one there brings up a good point. I always wonder about that. Do some Are there some visitations from loved ones that the loved one doesn't realize that what they're going to do is going to freak out the individual that they're trying to visit or trying to check on? Um, I can imagine that happening. And again, I don't know what happened to this person either for sure. I like how they point out physics and they don't understand all of physics because I can totally relate to that. Um, but the timing is fascinating. It could have been the grandmother. It could be that it was deliberate in that they didn't want to show themselves necessarily in full form. It was just meant that the door handle turning was just meant to get the writer's attention, but that's all that was going to happen. I don't know, but that seems like it's possible as well. Or it could have been unrelated. It's really hard to know, especially without maybe more things happening, which you don't always want either. So, but I think that will do it for tonight. If you want a longer show, like I said, I would recommend episode 899, which just came out just under 24 hours ago. And check out that one because that's a 2 hour long show, sort of the second part of these 3 Halloween special shows. And yeah, thank you all for being here, listening in. And I will be taking the next week off. I've decided because I've been so busy this past month, um, and I need a little break. So I think I'm going to take this whole coming week off from recording and releasing shows. So um, so yeah, I think that's a good good time to take a little break. Just a week though. I know by then I'll be ready to come back, and because I don't like normally taking breaks. But thank you all for being here, and I will talk to you all next time on episode 901 of Salsidoparanormal. Everyone, take care, and